My friend Phyllis Khare has gone from performer to author, digital strategist, and course creator. She has written two books late in her 40s, including co authoring Facebook Marketing All in One for Dummies with me and Amy Porterfield, as well as another Dummies book. She has done so much later in life, and I can't wait to dive into this interview. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Hello, Late Starters. It's your host, Andrea Vall, and I am here with a longtime friend, probably one of the people who has been influential in changing my life the most is Phyllis Khare. So we were joking before we went on that trying to figure out her bio is we'll be here for half the episode talking about her bio, but do want to highlight a couple things that were exciting and fun for our it's a combined bio for us. Phyllis Khare is the co-author of Facebook Marketing All in One for Dummies, along with Amy Porterfield and myself. So the three of us co-authored the first two editions of Facebook Marketing All in One for Dummies. She went on to write two more Dummies books, right? Two more?
Just one.
Just one more. Felt like feels like
It felt like 2 though.
Feels like 2, yes. And we co-founded Social Media Manager School, a fantastic, amazing program that had I don't even know if we tracked exactly how many official students came through. It was at least 1,500,
Yeah, probably more.
probably more like 2,000, but
Mhm.
we definitely had grown our, webinars and presentations that we did with that to into the high thousands, very like lots of thousands of people went through our training, free programs. But then we had students who were and members who were connected with our group. We had retreats. We had so much fun doing that and sold that program, that course, a few years back. And now Phyllis does all kinds of things. So it's amazing. It's fun. And you got started with all of this later in life.
Yes, all of it, like all of it, because I
Yeah.
was in my late 40s, early 50s when we wrote the books and started
Right.
the school. So
Right.
and I'm much older than that now. So it was a good chapter. I like
Yeah.
thinking of things like in chapters these days
Yeah.
because it seems like there's an arc and there seems to be
Right.
like this thing that happens.
Yep.
And it was a beautiful chapter. It was lovely from tip to toe. And now there's like this new especially for me, like this chapter change. When you read an actual book, you change chapters pretty quickly. Mine's like taking years to turn that page into the new chapter, but I can see it going in that
Yeah.
direction and it feels really good.
That's such an interesting thing because I definitely feel that same way. And I think that's important for everyone who is listening to hear that because there is this messy middle transition part that can feel like it takes forever, right? It
Yes.
can feel that way. It can feel like just an up and down ride of roller coaster through this and thinking, and you forget how long it took to start those other chapters.
Yes.
You
Yes.
forget that. You forget that was bumpy in the beginning of those chapters as well, and we think it was just an easy page turn. "Okay, now I'm gonna do this." No.
No, and even in that last chapter, it really took about 4 years, really, to
Uh-huh.
really build up to where we really had a viable business with all of that, and then it really hit its stride, and
Right.
so, with this new chapter, I think, "Okay, I'm only a few years into this, it's okay. I have a lot more to go," and even though I'm in my 60s now, I don't feel like I'm in my 60s, I'm weird that way. But I'm like, I have so many things that I still wanna do and
Yeah.
work toward and build and create, and so I'm just like, "It's okay. It's
Yeah.
totally okay." Because in
Yep.
this next chapter, I'll be in my 70s when it hits
Mhm.
its stride, and I'm chill with that, at least
Yeah.
today. Now I have to say, some days you think, "What the heck?" But then you think, the things that I really dislike the most are boredom and not being creative.
Yeah.
And so I have to stay creative and I have to keep going and doing the work because I love it so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Creativity is huge, and I think it's important to stay engaged, and it's so fun. I think I was talking to someone yesterday. Oh yeah, I was talking to Brian Clark yesterday, and we were talking about this whole idea of like just not really retiring on purpose, just
Yeah.
because you want to stay engaged, you want to stay productive, you want to do it all on your terms, and
Yes.
really bringing in that creativity that
Yes.
we've realized is so important now. Back when we were younger, it was all about like, making money and earning and, kind of just grinding it out. Now it gets to be so fun.
Yes, and that's the key. I
Yeah,
think that a lot of people who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are finding that they just do not have the patience for doing things that do not bring them joy. The
right.
patience is just not there for it. And so they try to create something that's more in alignment with what gives them joy. And I think
Mhm.
that even though that advice, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, is weird in your 40s, it doesn't make sense in your 30s and 40s as much as it does in your 60s and 70s.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm just going to tease a little announcement we're going to make at the end of this podcast about something that we have coming for people who are in this messy middle, creating something, starting later in life, doing something new. So, if this is you, stay tuned till the end because we have something fun and exciting for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
good.
but I want to dive into a little bit about you. You had this past career as Miss Phyllis,
Yes.
and I wanna talk a little bit about that, but then also talking about how it came to be that you dove in took that transition from Miss Phyllis performer to Phyllis Khare online digital strategist. What a giant leap that is, and
Yes.
what that took. So talk about that where you came from in that transition.
Yes. So, talking about chapters, in my 20s and 30s, I was a performer, songwriter, and I did all of those musical things out in the world. And I created CDs and curriculum for schools, for elementary schools for music. And I did all of that. And I taught music and I taught choir and I did all of that. And I performed myself all over. I was a artist in residence with the Iowa Arts Council, and I got lots of grants, and that was like my career for like 20
Mhm.
years. And
Yeah.
then I basically got burnt out. Basically, the fourth grade boys just about killed me. So I decided to just take all of that, put it in a Tupperware, put it in the basement, and move to Florida. And it was a big, solid chapter turn. And living in Florida for those 2 years was like the best pretend retirement ever. And I got to walk on the beach twice a day, and it was wonderful. And during that time, I fell into doing stuff online. This was a new thing back in,
Mhm.
2004. It was not normal to be online. People just didn't do that very much. And I ended up building a Yahoo store back in the day, and I found all these artists and craftspeople that I loved, and I contracted with them, and I presented them in a store, an online store. And I was like way before that whole thing was like a viable venture, and it was
Mhm.
beautiful, but it did not
Mhm.
make any money. But along that way, I learned how to do everything online, and I learned how to build websites, I learned how to market, I learned how to do all the things. And so when I was approached by a friend of mine, she said, "Phyllis, you know everything you know about WordPress. My editor wants somebody to write the book called Websites with WordPress for Dummies." And I was like, "Well, I could do that. I can write that book." And then so I did a little digging, and the person who had been writing those dummy books about WordPress, it seems like she would have been the person to write this book. And I asked the editor, I was like, "But wait, shouldn't this person be writing the book?" And she said, "Oh, she's too busy. She's already writing 3 books. Don't worry about it. Write it." So I spent a lot of time writing as dummy books. They want you to write the whole outline of the book, like
Mhm.
3 levels deep, and just a lot of work up front before you even get the gig. And
Right.
so I did that, sent it in, very proud of myself for doing all of that. And she wrote back to me in an email and she said, "Oh, remember that other woman? We're going to have her write that book now." And I was like, and I felt at that point I had a choice. I could take the low road or the high road on this one. And so I decided, I wrote her back and I said, "That's okay. If you ever need anything, I'm here. I'm happy to help." And that was basically all I said. And
Mm.
literally 30 seconds later, she wrote back and said, "How would you like to write Facebook marketing all in one for dummies?" And that's how the whole book thing started. And it was a wild ride to get that first book. And then the second book, they called me when I was at a conference in Las Vegas, and they said, "Hey, you want to write a second book?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "And we're going to pay you a fee for this, so it won't be royalty based, and it's 3 times what you made last time." And I'm like, "Yes." And then they said, "You have 30 days to write it." And
I can't even
literally,
imagine.
and it was over a 300-page book, and for
Yeah.
those of you who have written for dummies, that it takes about an hour per page
Yeah.
because of the way they
Mm.
make you format it, the way
Right.
they make you research it, the style guide, the whole thing, and
Mhm.
everything that goes with it, and you have to make your own images, it's like you're writing the whole book,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so I thought, "Sure," and I signed that contract and just about killed myself trying to write that book.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to master time management. And
Mhm.
that's when I started bugging everybody I know about how to use their Google Calendar for time
Mhm.
management.
Mhm.
And but then the second book came out. And that change from being a performer to being an author was very hard because my brain was not set up for writing, especially a
Mhm.
dummies book, which is very structured and
Mhm.
very the architecture for it has already been determined. As
Mhm.
whereas being an artist, it was like I could do anything I wanted. It was
Right.
my project.
Right.
So it was a hard transition, a very hard transition brain-wise through that. But being forced to do that actually made me a much better artist, and it also made me a much better marketer because it forced me into figuring out systems to be organized,
Mhm.
right? Because that was not the thing back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely that book definitely changed the way I write for sure. I didn't like writing at the time,
Mhm.
and now I feel like I'm just a much, much better writer because it was
Yes.
so brutal. So brutal. And I'll never forget that, phone call. It was in August. I still remember, like, right in August when you called and you're like, "Hey," we had connected through we went to this weekly chat, and that's how we
Yes.
connected. I was Grandma Mary at the time, and,
Well, I have to tell this story because it's embarrassing to me, but, I found Grandma Mary on YouTube, and I was like, "This is awesome. She has, like, the best tutorials for YouTube and Facebook." I was like, "She Grandma Mary's great." And then, I'm sorry to say, it took me a little while to figure out that you were Grandma Mary. It was like I was so convinced Grandma Mary was an actual person,
I
and that's
know.
how good you were. And then when I figured out it was you, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed," right? And but we connected, and when the Wiley editor said, "Look, Phyllis, you're a first-time author. It's a humongous book. You need to take on someone else as a writer with you." And I
Mhm.
said, "Andrea, because she knows lots of things and she's very smart. And she also has this weird persona that she could bring to the table because Yummy's books usually have that humor
Yeah,
component in there." And I thought that was a great thing. So I said, "Definitely, Andrea, for this."
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
how we connected you into the book. And then it
right.
was a whole nother story about getting
Yeah,
Amy
we
in
had
and
a
all of that.
yeah, we
But
had
yeah,
it
that
on
was
the
a wild thing we went through.
it was so funny. I just remember that phone call. You're like, "How would you like to write a do" I was like, "What?"
What? How it was for me out of the blue
Yeah,
from my friend who said, "I have
yeah,
an editor who wants you to write this book." So I love those out of the blue moments. They're really
right.
wonderful.
Yeah, and definitely life-changing because I think for sure that book has been the catalyst for speaking all over the world and
Mhm.
all the opportunities we've had and us working together to launch the social media manager school, which was
Mhm.
just such a beautiful part of my life as well. So many great people connected in there and love seeing their businesses grow and just being able to really build the people who are coming from starting from scratch into a thriving business. It's so much
Yes.
fun. So that's awesome. And I know that you had some kind of qualms being, and same with me as well. I was a little bit older person. Social media was a young person's like game. It felt like people were all younger. But how did that feel jumping into that space and being a part of this kind of up and coming digital space as an older person?
Yeah, it's so that all goes back to the fact that I don't see myself as an older person. Occasionally at things now I do because I do things that I think to myself, "Oh god, old people do that, Phyllis. Why are you doing that?" But back then I didn't feel it so much. I just didn't feel it, and I just kept doing my thing. And where that sort of came into play was a little bit later when in my early 60s I would hear 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds talking about marketing as if they just discovered it. And
Mhm.
I was like, so I've been talking about that for 2 decades. And so that's the odd part when you
Mhm.
see things repeating.
Mhm.
That's when you feel like, "Oh god, I'm really old." And then one time I'll just tell this fun story when Michael Stelzner introduced me as a elder in the community. I almost hit him and I but he wanted to give me that platform to speak as someone who'd been around and
Yep.
done all the things, but
Yeah.
I just didn't. I was like, "Elder, come closer so I can hit you." So
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it was meant as a compliment, being
yes,
someone who had been, seen a lot, was a, respected person who knew stuff, not just brand new to the platform, all of
yes,
these platforms, all that
yeah,
stuff. But it is funny that word choice. Word choice matters. Word choice matters, people.
yeah,
Even the whole OG, it's like, oh, I don't
yes,
know. But I think what really makes you different and has been such a service to you is the curiosity you have around learning. And I think that's what it's about. You dive in and you see something, and then you're like, I got to learn all about that. And so much stuff because you're always consuming knowledge and growing and like out there learning some of the tactics and piecing it together and then saying, hey, here's where real good strategy can be. And you've taken businesses and grown them from like almost where people have almost shut their business down
yes,
to all of a sudden it's grown to multiple six or multiple, what is it? Tens of thousands of dollars each month from
yes.
to $1 million business, basically,
Yes,
essentially.
yes, or a many million-dollar business.
Many,
And
yeah.
the thing about that is, it's true that if somebody, talks about a topic and I don't know about it, I'm, like, all in for the next few weeks. I'm just learning everything,
Yeah.
and, for example, right now, we're real knee-deep into, web stories on Google, so
Mm,
hello, and also Amazon, certain tactics with Amazon and WordPress plugins that do this and that, and like lots and lots of very weird, bizarre things that have to do with
yeah.
online marketing.
Yeah.
And if I made a list of all the things that I've either studied or mastered in the last 10 years, it would be super long because I
Yeah.
really love to
Yeah.
learn something new. I don't like to be in conversation with someone and they say, "What about web stories?" And I'll be like, "Oh, I don't know, but I will find out. And I will master this in a couple of weeks." And so that's
Yeah.
definitely how I feel.
I know, you're amazing. Whereas me, I approach it like, you know what? I'll learn that if it really becomes a thing.
And that's
I'm
okay, and
like,
that's, like, totally okay. You have to really be clear about who you are and what you
yeah.
are and how you work, because I
Mhm.
know a lot of people, if they looked at all the things I'm doing, we get very overwhelmed very quickly. But remember, I come from that creative brain structure that
Mhm.
allows me to do a bunch of different things at one time,
Yeah.
and that's the way I work. It's not how everybody works, it's the way I
Mhm.
work, and knowing who you are and how you work is probably one of the most important things I've learned about myself in the last 10 years is
Mhm.
really understanding who I am. So much so that I made a t-shirt. I should have worn it today. Darn it. It just says remember who you are. And then it has one of my pretty flowers on it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I made one for my granddaughter and she has some challenges in life, but she is like this beautiful gem of a soul. And so I want her to always to remember who she is at her core. And for those of us who have had a hard time being nice to ourselves through time, remembering who you are and honoring that is sometimes a challenge, and it takes some time to work through it. So it's one of those things.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely so I think that's the other beautiful part about this time in our lives is that there isn't as much apologizing for who we are. We are more clear about that, and we get to choose and we get to have better boundaries. I think personally,
There's some great comedy around that, and I think I even know a joke that you do about how after 40, it was just like, that this is who I am.
yeah,
So, that's it. That's
yeah,
just the way it is, yeah.
yeah.
Which, by the way, I have to just give you some major kudos for all of that work you're doing in the comedy field. I think you're super hilarious, and everyone needs to go follow her on Instagram and YouTube and all the places that she's got her comedy channel up, because it makes my day when it shows up in my notifications and I get to hear a joke and I get to hear something funny from you. So thank you so much for doing that. Do you understand that creativity, bringing that out to the world, being the creator instead of the consumer? Is
Mhm.
like so important. If people stopped creating, we would all be like, oh my gosh, so bored, because it would
Yeah,
be like
yeah,
nothing to keep us going. So the creators, the makers of the world are really where it is, where it needs
mhm,
to be. And so thank you for
yeah.
doing all of that.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. It's so fun. I love it. It's another chapter in my life. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, speaking of creating, the other thing I think that is really cool about things that you do and have done is that we've had these different like little segments of what we did. So we built the social media manager school and
Mhm,
we're running that and we were launching several times a year and
mhm,
that was a whole cycle of building that community.
mhm.
But you've also worked in other communities and worked to build other communities. And what I like about that is that people don't often realize how many different possible online jobs there are for people who are good at different types of things. If you're good at engaging community and bringing people together, there's community manager places out there that are
Yes.
available for you. If you're good at building a course or teaching,
Mhm,
you can do that all online. If
mhm,
you're good at one-on-one consulting, that's a possible road, and you've done
mhm.
kind of all of that.
I have. I was like, "Yeah, I did that one and I did that." You learn a lot about yourself by doing all those different things, and
Mhm,
I have learned through time, if I'm going to be coaching someone, I like to do it in more of a small group setting, and because I just feel like that's very supportive to people, is to get all that variety and energy and understanding into one space, instead of maybe just doing some private coaching, which I'm happy to do, but I'm also, it feels more fulfilling to do in a group. And I think that was because we cultured that beautiful community at that time. And
mhm.
so that feels very good to me
Yeah,
naturally.
yeah,
Yeah, I've done all those things and I've taught people to do all those things. And that's the fun part too, is to see other people that I've taught through time really being very successful doing something that they learned through me at some
yeah,
point. So it's fun.
yeah, yeah, that's super fun. That is super fun. So you know what? With that, I would like to I think it is a good time to talk about the next thing we have coming.
Yes.
So, because I'm excited. So, we are starting the Late Starters Club Mastermind. So,
Yes.
the Late Starters Club is going to be a true club
It's a club. That's
in
right.
in a mastermind format,
Mhm.
and we're going to be bringing people in to help mastermind their next chapter, mastermind starting something new,
Yes.
or even just growing it. You can either be in the startup phase where you're like, I know that I want to get this new thing off the ground. I have an idea. Maybe you even don't have an idea, but you have a seed of an idea and you want to bring something new out into the world. You've got all the wisdom and experience that we do as late starters, but you're branching into something new. Or it could be that you've got something going and you want to just ramp it up and grow it, and you want ideas on how to market it, how to get it a bigger visibility out in the world, we're going
Mhm.
to be masterminding about that as well.
And the
Yeah.
3rd track, which is my favorite because I have definitely been in this space,
Yeah.
is the business burnout recovery track.
Mhm.
And so many people, especially people that we know who have been working online for maybe 10 years or more, find themselves very burnt out on the whole thing. And they just want to
Mhm.
chuck the whole thing and go live in a coffee cafe the rest of their lives and just be done with it. And
Yeah.
that burnout is real. And so we call it burnout recovery for a reason because we really feel like that being with other people who are going through this can give you the support and the emotional support to get through it at your own pace and come out on the other side a little more settled and a little more positive about working. So I
Mhm.
think that's an important track too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. As we used to joke, we were going to move down to the banana farm. You
We
always
still
hear
have that
you
banana farm.
yeah.
That banana farm was like a real lifesaver for us for 10 years because
Yeah.
we had this alternate universe we could click into and say, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't have to do this. I can be a banana farmer," and
I
and all would be
I
fine.
I think you started it and I just latched on. I'm like, "Yeah, sounds good." And we just head
Good.
down, hopefully it's by the beach and
Yes,
just yeah.
absolutely by the beach, no other place. Yeah.
So, yeah, the exciting thing is this is going to be small groups. What
Yes.
we're going to be doing is meeting a couple of times a month. We're going to have just little groups that we're going to start with. We're in beta here
Yes,
with this.
absolutely. Beta.
And so the idea is if you are interested in getting more information, learning more, talking to us about being part of this mastermind. There's going to be it's not like it's going to be a hard sell or anything like that. We just want to have a conversation, chat about if this might be right for you, because we really do want to get the right people into these groups that we think we're going to be able to really launch into that next chapter, that next phase very well. And like we said, it's going to be in a beta format where it's going to be very heavily influenced by the people who are coming into it as far as what they want to see in this program.
Yes.
And I know it's masterminds in general have been so influential in my career, in my 14 years of having my business,
Yes.
that I just can't stress enough the power of getting together and connecting as a group of people in a similar phase, and just the energy and the ideas that come out of it. It's a huge thing.
And in our industry, there are people who are very gifted at what they do, but they don't have any community to enjoy that camaraderie with. And they
Mhm.
might be the only person they know that knows how to do Facebook ads. And so
Right.
if they want to just like chat with somebody, it's hard finding people, especially locally, that
Mhm.
you can just hang out with and have
Mhm.
that peer to peer conversation and discussion
Right.
and that support that you get from being around people that have the same experience that you do. And
Right.
so this is like that whole feeling of being together and doing things together really broke in 2020. It just
Mm.
that whole system
Yeah.
broke. And so this is a way to put things back in order or
Mhm.
back to pieces is
Mhm.
to find community with people. And there are a lot of people who are very lonely out there who don't have, like I said, peers in this industry. That
Right.
none of their friends are online marketers or social media managers or business people or
Right.
entrepreneurs. They're just not. And so finding those communities are really important for them. So hopefully
Mhm.
they'll find us. That'd be
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so the next step for you, if you're interested in hearing more about this, there's a link here. It's going to either be in the show notes or in the description, wherever you might be listening to this. You will find a link to this form to just put your name in the hat to say, yeah, I'd like some more information. We'll be connecting with you and talking to you about what you're interested in and making sure this is the right fit and the right space for you. But we are super excited about this. We have been doing this type of masterminding, group masterminding together, the two of us, for years, and ran retreats and all of that. And it just has been such a fun experience to see the growth and to contribute to that growth. So we're excited to team up again and
The
do it.
band's back together, baby. That's great.
Yeah. So this has been awesome, Phyllis. I do like to end with a quote or inspirational saying that you have because I'm such a quote junkie. So just if you can share something inspiring that gets you going, I would love to hear that to close it out.
It's a funny thing because every time I read any quote, it becomes my instant new favorite, right?
Yeah.
Because I love all of them. But there's one that I really like a lot, and it's um, life is what we make it, always has been, always will be. Grandma Moses. Now, I don't know if Grandma Moses, but Grandma Moses was a very famous Americana painter. She didn't start painting until she was 78.
Oh my gosh.
78, and she's an icon of
Awesome.
the in the painting world for this particular genre. So, I just think it's great, and that whole thing is life is what we make it, always has been, always will be. So, I just
Yeah.
really like that one a lot.
That is awesome. I love that, and I've never heard that quote. So I that's why I love doing this, and so fitting for this podcast. Oh my gosh, and for the new mastermind that we are doing. So that is awesome. So thank you so much, Phyllis. Where can people find you online? What share your socials with us or where people can find you? You do so many things. I always
The funny thing is I do a lot of different things, lots of different
Mhm.
things, and a lot of it is art based now. I have this one space you can go to check all that out. It's you got to spell my name correctly. So it's phylliskhare.com/links. Just go there and you'll see all the kind of fun things I'm doing in these new chapter ideas that I'm working
Mhm.
on. Not so much my old chapter stuff, but my new chapter stuff. So you can go to phylliskhare.com/links.
Awesome. And that will be in the show notes as well. And just a one last plug, please, if you have any idea at all about, yes, this might be something I'm possibly interested in, just fill out the form, have a conversation for it with us. We'll just see what is a fit for you. And we are excited about the potential for growing your business, get you started later, get you crushing it out there.
Yes.
So I hope to talk to you guys soon. All right. Thanks, everyone.